Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Wright Experience. This is actually the 110th episode, and I'm excited to bring this to you. I'm Dr. William T. Wright Jr., the founder and host of this show. Tonight, I have the distinct pleasure of having two guests for the price of one, if you will. Tonight, I have two authors who have co-wrote a very life-changing book regarding leadership, and we'll get to meet those gentlemen and talk with them very succinctly here in a few minutes. One guest is returning, and we'll talk about him first and remind you of who he is. Our guest, one of our guests, is Dr. Stephen G. Peters. Dr. Peters has been a classroom teacher, an assistant principal, director of secondary education, and superintendent during his 38-plus year career. Most of his experiences have been in schools that made significant growth in short periods of time, resulting in both national and state blue ribbon distinction. In 2015, Dr. Peters was the featured subject of an education documentary filmed in the USA by the BBC titled American High School, A School in the South. The documentary won Best Education Documentary in Europe in 2016 and was purchased and rebroadcasted by National Geographic in 2017. As superintendent, Peters led his district to being named a National School District of Distinction in 2020. An avid sports fan and former athlete, Stephen was inducted into the Colleton County Basketball Hall of Fame in 2016. Dr. Peters is the founder of the nationally recognized Gentlemen and Ladies Clubs programs, of which I've had the honor of seeing personally featured on the Oprah Winfrey Show, and he was also the past president of the International Literacy Association, ILA. Stephen is also a best-selling author of several books. Do You Know Enough About Me to Teach Me? Teaching to Capture and Inspire All Learners, Choosing to Believe, Creating a Framework for School Success, Inspired to Learn Why We Must Give Children Hope, co-author of One, A Process of Building Schools of Excellence for Everyone and Everyone, and soon to be released. Actually, that's what we're going to talk about tonight. He is currently the co-author of Leadership Transformation A to Z, What Great Leaders Do. Presently, he is the CEO and president of Peters Group, the Peters Group, which is a national and international education consulting agency, and he's a consultant with Initiative One Leadership Institute. He delivers keynote addresses, provides professional development workshops for leaders, teachers, staff, students, and parents, and serves as an executive coach to superintendents and principals throughout the United States. He received his Bachelor's of Science degree from Hampton University, his MED from Old Dominion University, and his EDD from South Carolina State University. And Stephen and his wife, Dr. Angela Peters, reside in Columbia, South Carolina. My second guest is new to the show and an amazing gentleman in his own right. My second guest is Dr. Fred Johnson, who is a national keynote speaker and founder of the group Initiative One. Dr. Johnson is a riveting and compelling speaker. He will move an audience to deep reflection and action long after an event has concluded. He's challenged executives in companies such as McDonald's, U.S. Steel, Transamerica, Caterpillar, Houston Methodist at UT Health, J.P. Morgan Chase, and many others. Affectionately named the GM Whisperer within the NFL, he has inspired coaches, executives, and players for the Green Bay Packers, Seattle Seahawks, Jacksonville Jaguars, Chicago Bears, as well as top collegiate athletic departments. I don't see my Bengals up there, but we'll let it pass on that one. Dr. Fred is passionate about equipping leaders to create world-class teams. He will lead you to a deeper ability to accelerate change, to kill drama. We all need that kill, don't we? To drive results and to create leadership teams who love to come to work. As a national thought leader in emotional intelligence and modern day leadership, be assured he will have you on the edge of your seats. Dr. Fred will deliver a message that drives leaders to internalize and implement emotional intelligence within their circle of influence and beyond. Upon leaving, leaders will be hungry to learn more, do more, and be more. So, Wright Experience audience, I know that you understand why I'm so excited to bring these two gentlemen aboard tonight. So at this time, I'd like to welcome to the Wright Experience, Dr. Stephen Peters and Dr. Fred Johnson. Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, William.
So, Dr. Peters, you're kind of old hat to this. We'll get into a series of questions, but I first want to give each of you space to just talk about the subject of the matter for tonight. I think I read on Twitter. That's how I found out about it, at least. You gentlemen have co-written an amazing book, Leadership Transformation A to Z. And so I'd like to give both of you space to just talk about how it got created and what it will do for us that need to learn how to be better leaders.
Yeah. So thank you, first of all, for having us on. And it's always good to tag team with Fred. We have fun when we're working together. And today has been just one of those monumental days where you really, really receive evidence that the work that you're doing with leaders is not only working, but it's like magical, right? And so that's a good way to jump into this segment, is talking with school leaders today about the book, which I keep near me, Leadership Transformation A to Z, What Great Leaders Do, is about transformation. I've often said, you and I have had this conversation, Dr. Wright, that we have some really smart people in education, but we don't think our way through issues. And partnering with Initiative One and Fred, they've been working for years in the private sector with companies, large companies, small companies. And so we have an education arm now that has come into under the umbrella of the Initiative One Leadership Institute. And leadership transformation from A to Z is really a byproduct of the transformation process that is like nothing I've ever seen before. If I had this, and I've shared this with Fred on numerous occasions, if I had access to this kind of deep dive into leadership transformation, I wouldn't be on your show right now. I'd be doing some other things, not to put your podcast down, but I really would be doing some other amazing things, because it gives you that foundation that you can't be a great leader of other people until you learn how to lead yourself, right? And so I'm gonna kind of pass the baton to Fred, because it's his work over 30 something years with probably 30 different companies at different levels. I think there he is, he's back, with hospitals, with grocery stores, with all sorts of agencies and organizations. And now we get to bring this to the education arena. And from what the feedback that we're getting, like today, I had one principal, and I wrote this down because I knew we were going to be on tonight, and I wanted to quote him properly. And he said, "I don't even like going to sleep at night because I'm so excited about going to work in the morning. Mm-hmm. And if it wasn't for this process and this type of training and preparation, I'm not sure I would have made it through this year," right? Yeah. It is the antidote for what ails public education today. And so with that backdrop, Fred, share with Dr. Wright and the listening audience and the viewing audience, how this came about in terms of the work that you started doing and continue to do now.
Thank you, Stephen, and thank you, Dr. Wright. What an opportunity to be with two amazing, good-looking gentlemen such as yourself. And Dr. Wright, I need to be real honest here. The parts of the book that are really great, I wrote. and the parts of the book that you may have a problem with, Stephen wrote. I just wanted to say that right up front, because if I hadn't said it, Stephen would have said it.
You're right. It was next.
Okay.
So the way that I was a pastor of a very large congregation in Detroit many years ago.
Wow. Okay.
And I had a parishioner, a petite African-American Spitfire woman by the name of Dr. Rosetta Riley, who was one of my parishioners. She had a doctorate from UCLA in economics, and she joined forces with a gentleman by the name of Dr. Edwards Deming, who started what we now know as the lean process. They both joined forces for 23 years. And after they were both kicked out of GM because they were taught that in the United States, the only kind of leadership that ever works is top-down dictatorial leadership, because people aren't smart enough to lead themselves. And so you all need to get out of here. And they went all over the world and for 2 years to try to find someone who would talk with them. And it was a little fledgling organization called Toyota. And they began to develop their process on the fly, experiment, learn through failure, feedback, and so forth. And they developed what is today the premier manufacturing efficiency process that is now also used in education and also the medical field. And she was a prolific leader. And when she came back after Dr. Deming had a heart attack, she was asked to lead the Malcolm Baldrige Quality Foundation. And as a 34-year-old young man, I had the privilege of sitting at her kitchen table in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. And the two of us created the 6 characteristics of world-class elite organizations that who would win the Baldrige Award. And it was awarded by the president. And she worked for 8 years with Bush and Clinton. And so this lady was the premier female leader in the world for understanding organizational excellence. And she just poured into me. And so when we talk about world-class companies, we mean world-class companies. They think differently, they behave differently, they make decisions differently, they communicate differently, they build an organization of trust that is off the charts. And so we started this 30 years ago. And one day, and we've been with 600 organizations in 23 different professional fields, but we weren't in public education. And one day I had a superintendent who came to me and said, look, I've got a bunch of depleted teachers. Yeah. They are worn out. They feel underappreciated. In my state, which was Wisconsin, we have a governor who treats us as a necessary expense instead of a gift to give our communities and our future generations. We're having turnover like you would never believe, and our people they're on fumes. Could you come and bring us your process. So we started with 48 teachers. And what happened was the feedback that we got is that it re-energized these 48 staff members. They discovered the love again. They reclaimed their love affair with teaching. They reaffirmed their purpose. They learned how to lead change faster and better and eliminate drama out of their buildings. Mm-hmm. And they began to talk about it. And one group led to another and to another and to another. And now we're all over the country. Stephen has been a huge addition to our team. As you can tell, he has a little bit of passion coming out of every pore of his body. And so we have the privilege of helping people re-engage their passion, learning how to deal with their peers, learning how to increase trust. And also what we find is the average organization, including school districts, do not have the bandwidth for any more than 2 to 3 major initiatives at any one time, because there's pay the rent that has to be done every day, all the teaching, all of the administration. And what we've learned is most organizations are so afraid, most school districts are so afraid to lead by principle, they end up reacting to the noise, to the pressure, to the personalities, and they don't make decisions or priorities. They just react according to whatever we need to do to get that person off our back. And what we're learning is we teach them, forget the 15 initiatives, no more than 3, typically just 2, and then stand your ground. And we have found that these school districts, their impact, they've reclaimed their impact. We're finding that they are able to get more done with less, which is critical in a world that we have hundreds of thousands of teachers that are leaving the field. And I don't know a building in the country that is fully staffed. Okay. And that's the reality. So how do we create synergies that are so powerful? We had one school system that had 18 leaders. Wow. They went from 18 to 10. We helped those 10 to come together, and their morale went from a 2, from a scale of 0 to 10, to a 9 in 3 months. Mm-hmm. And they started, and attrition began to decline. And that these are the teachers who started saying to their friends in elsewhere, you need to come here, man. We've got some pretty special things going on. And so they not only stopped the talent drain, but they were able to start bringing in talent, because the best people to bring in, fill talent in your buildings is not HR. It's the people who this is their passion, this is their field. They know all kinds of people, and they start talking. Those people have credibility with their friends. So it has a major. We had one situation that the superintendent told us that last year, this was in 2022. He told us that they had 812 formal complaints filed with HR against the principal in one of their 16 buildings. 812 complaints. Well, why? Because the HR was the babysitter. The HR was the the mediator of all of the complaints. And so we started working with them to teach them how to deal with conflict, how to start delivering the mail to the right address to each other, how to create a culture of high trust where people were empowered and respected and included. I didn't believe this, but the next year he got up and shared with his board that they went in 1 year from 812 complaints to 0 in 1 year. And why was it? Because they learned how to start communicating with each other, how to start working through tension and conflict and chaos. And the morale of the school district soared. And today they've gone from 3 underperforming schools to 0 underperforming schools. Mm-hmm. And it's just their people are desperate for those things that really work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you haven't really talked about bells and whistles. You're talking about cultural adjustments. It sounds like more so than anything. So let me kind of take us here, and both of you can certainly answer this question. So I heard you talk about getting away from a top-down or dictatorial leadership approach, which most of us now understand that that's what needed. How do we, though, convince stakeholders, be they board members, be they community members, who, the buck needs to stop with you, and, you need to create this centralized leadership approach? How do we fix that? What are some of the strategies that we do to educate folks on the fact that the way leadership is delivered has changed?
Yeah.
Well, Stephen, you want to jump in there first?
Yeah, I think what comes to mind most for me is, number one, leadership is not what you do. It's not your title. It's not school board member, school board chair, superintendent, principal. It's who you are. Mm-hmm. And I think that is the crust of leadership transformation and the core self-belief that we have in the work that we do. Working with Initiative One, I was just astounded to come to the knowledge of the average self-belief of leaders in our work is around 2.7 on a scale of 0 to 10. Uh-huh. And it surprised me, and I see your mouth open wide too, Dr. Wright, because you and I walk in that circle. We've been in the buildings, we've led school districts, you're still leading one. And we look the part, we act the part, we talk the part. But how do we feel when we're away from school board meetings? How do we feel when we're not around our colleagues at leadership meetings, when we are alone and we are with ourselves? And so the best example I can give you is, at the end of the day, we all need to be worthy of our own self-approval, which comes through that self-belief. Fred and I touch on this in the book because in his doctoral work, he used this system of self-belief on a scale of 0 to 10. What's your attitude about dealing with people? What's your attitude about being collaborative? And each reader gets to come up with their self-belief average. And then you can go back 3 months later after small pivots of identifying where you need work. And then you come back 3 months later and do it again to see how you've grown, or what is the leadership transformation process doing for you? I think we're beyond convincing people that top-down leadership doesn't work. For me, going into a leadership position, the best fuel that we have is success and impact. Uh-huh. Evidence-based. What are your students doing? Academic achievement, is it getting better? Attendance, because we can't teach students who don't come to school. What's the data saying, right? Are your kids coming to school? Are you creating spaces and environments that are safe, psychological spaces for the adults who work in that building or that district? And what are kids saying when they go home and they're sitting with their parents or their guardians or whoever is in that household? What are they talking about? And are they looking forward to getting up and going to school the next day, like that principal said today? Out of 5 principals that I coached today, 3 of those schools were on school improvement lists just a year ago. How many are on there now? 0.
Mm-hmm.
0. And so when you provide the evidence that this is a process that works much better and it's more sustainable over time, then there's not a whole lot more convincing you need to do if you have the evidence and the data to back it up. So, Fred?
You asked the question, how do you build a collaborative team?
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're really asking. Well, you build a collaborative team by creating high trust in that room. When people feel safe and they know that there's not going to be we want your voice. You have a responsibility. If you're going to be at this table, you have a responsibility to speak your mind, because great leadership teams are not a bunch of yes people.
Right.
There is robust debate. There is diversity of thought. And a high world-class team, they trust each other enough that they know that they can talk freely. Well, when that happens, ideas start to soar and flourish.
Mm-hmm.
You increase the rate and the depth and the quality of ideas, you increase the rate of change in an organization. And not only that, but when you know all of the real truth is getting out. So let's say if you're leading your team and half your team feels scared to speak their mind, and you need to solve a problem very quickly in your organization, but you're only getting half the information because people know what the real issue is, but they're not about to say it because the last time they were with a superintendent and spoke their mind, someone ringed them. So they go, oh, I'm going to stay quiet. Mm-hmm. Well, if you create an environment where people are respected and valued and appreciated, and that we want your voice, problems get solved faster and deeper. And so and we know that we can compare a top-down leadership team with a collaborative team, and the collaborative team will have 2.5 times greater impact than a top-down team. Mm-hmm. It just, and the other thing that Stephen is talking about is you have to, skill-based training is not enough. You have to start with the identity and where that person, you have to change the self-narratives that person has. And what we found is that while the average leader has a self-belief level of 2.7, which means I hope people don't find me out. I hope they don't know how over the head I feel sometimes. I hope that they don't know my story and how big of a fraud we are. We, in public education, our data that we work with is the average leader has a self-belief level of a 4. Well, in order to be effective, you have to get your self-belief level to somewhere around a 7 or an 8. Mm-hmm. At 2.7, my narrative is I am not enough. At 7 or an 8, my narrative is I am enough. At 2.7, you hold me accountable and I'll feel you're attacking me. At 8.0, you hold me accountable, and I'm going to thank you for respecting me enough to help me to win by having this to share this information. And so at 8, your behaviors start changing, your way of thinking. At 2.7, you're not going to have a difficult conversation that needs to happen to deal with an issue in your building. At 8.0, you're not going to have difficulty approaching that issue. And so we have found the single most important thing to change leadership is to change the narrative of a person and to begin to help that person accept themselves, love themselves, and value themselves, warts and all. That is the ceiling of leadership potential.
And that's it. That's internal. What you're talking about is working internal, isn't it?
It is not a magic pill. The magic pill does not exist.
Okay.
It is hard work. It is a multi-layered quilt that has a lot of different factors involved.
So does that transcend? I think I know the answer to this question, but I want clarity. Does that transcend experience, where I came from, the school environment I'm in, the dysfunctionality of the school district? Does it transcend that? Can I be fixed? Can I grow internally no matter where I am?
Well, Stephen, what do you think?
I don't think there's a clear-cut answer to that. I listened today to Saban, who is leaving Alabama, who's the winningest college football coach in history, and he says that the difference now is that we're dealing with a generation of people, and I don't think he was just talking about the student athletes, just in general, of people who have an illusion of choices, that they actually think they have a choice to do it this way or that way. But in essence, if you are a winner, a proven winner, hard work, discipline, those same tenets that have us sitting where we're sitting right now, no magic pill, no, like Fred said earlier, right, those things that we have to go to get to another place. And I just read that over and over and over again, because this guy who wrote that article studied this man for 27 years. And he's saying the reason he was able to put those championship players and teams on that field is because they totally not only subscribed to those beliefs, but they lived them, right? It was a lived experience. One of the first things I learned when I became a part of Initiative One is that world-class organizations do two things better than average organizations: make decisions and solve problems. If you can do those two things in a school district, Brother Wright, you're going to be the best they've seen. You've been a superintendent for 11 years. That is almost unheard of in present day and time. And so kudos to you for not only still being here, doing not only functional work, but great work. And students benefit from your leadership every day. But the work that we're doing right now, man, it's a seminal piece of education work, but it expands beyond the educational world. So www.initiative1.com is where your viewers can get the book. There's a bookstore there. We're having an amazing gathering in Green Bay, Wisconsin, June 13th through the 16th. That registration link is also on that website, where leaders from all over the world, some who are a part of our leadership transformation process, and those who are curious to find out more, we're all gathered there from the 13th.
Did I do that right?
That is it. Yes.
Okay. That's it, my friend.
All right. Very good. So we'll leave that up for a moment. So let me piggyback to something else that I think would be helpful to our listeners and viewers. So if I am a leader and I'm just hitting a brick wall at this point, things are, I'm trying to deal with post-COVID recovery, and people are constantly on me about being strong in the work that I do. And so talk to us a little bit about how we, because I heard us talk about rejuvenation. That's not the word we use, but that kind of thing. How do we do that? How do we get people refocused on leadership in 2024 and beyond?
The most important, there are two things I would say.
Okay.
Number one, you have to rediscover your purpose.
Okay.
Here's how I define purpose. Purpose is that magic square inch in your life where you have the greatest joy, making the deepest impact with the least amount of effort. Less than 1% of people know their purpose and actually make hard decisions to align their lives around that purpose. And once you find that purpose, your purpose finds you. And we know that you cannot be miserable and be on purpose at the same time. When you rediscover your purpose, it rediscovers you and starts setting a fire anew in your soul. And that's the key. And we have a methodology. Columbia University, which is known for educating public educators, said to us, how in the world did you guys figure this out? Because they wanted us to bring our process to postdoctoral level superintendents that didn't want to go back to school and get another degree, but they wanted to keep getting better. And they wanted to use our process. And with great confidence, we said to them, we have no idea. 25 years of feedback, of failure, learning, readjusting. But what we learned was a methodology of helping people to discover their purpose, rediscover it in an accelerated fashion. And then we taught them how to start aligning their lives around purpose. Most people who even know their purpose, they're out of integrity with their purpose. And typically it's because of fear of relational rejection or a fear of financial insecurity. And in those two times, people will put their purpose aside because of the tyranny of fear. And we help them overcome that fear by processing through the fear and then re-engaging with their purpose again. And you show me a person who knows their purpose, you will show me I will show you a person of courage, of intentionality, who is proactive, who is setting boundaries in their lives to stay above the noise. Mm-hmm. And the noise is what kills educators.
Yeah. It's a lot, Dr. Wright, as you can hear. It's so much and it's so deep that it facilitates that deep thinking that I've always thought was missing in public education. Yeah. Not only at the top, but in the classroom and so forth. I had a principal today tell me that they applied for this award. They really wanted it because it would showcase their school. They found out a few days ago that they did not get the award. They were close. She was disappointed, but there were also 12 people short because of the flu outbreak in their state, in their city. And because they were short 12 people, they had outside stuff happening after school that they didn't have enough people to cover. She said she even had substitute teachers go home, change their clothes, come back to volunteer. She was almost in tears because she said, my folks, my team showed up. They showed up. And so we kind of talked through why they showed up. They showed up because of the environment. They showed up because of high trust. They showed up because of her style of leadership. Because any given time, people will bail if they don't believe in the culture and the environment of the school. And so we talked through that today, and I could see a sense of joy and pride. And she said at the end, she says, you know what, Dr. Peters, forget that award. We won a more important award, and that is we showed up for each other. And so that's what the transformation work is all about. It's not winning awards or gaining titles. It's getting the work done, regardless of the obstacles. I've often said to people, COVID, post-COVID, guess what? The work still has to be done. And so we're very fortunate. We're blessed. We're grateful. We're honored and humble to be available to increase opportunities for school district, business, agencies, organizations to do their work at the highest levels possible at the fastest speed possible.
You know, as I'm sitting here listening to you all, you guys are really, and I'm not saying this because you're guest on my show. You guys are really on to something. In today's leadership challenges, we need exactly that. We've got to have people who understand what we're doing to tell us that yes, we can still do it. So sometimes just taking that time, as you're talking about, to say, okay, well, here's the bigger picture, or here's the real picture of what's going on, because leadership is tough right now. I mean, we can, you know this. I mean, we can take a couple clicks and find leaders being bounced out, things of that nature, because sometimes they just took a stand. You know, they wanted to try to do what's best for the children. So thank you for that. That's absolutely amazing that we have that kind of support and leadership out here.
50% of doing the work is believing it can be done.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So powerful. Gentlemen, anything else that we need to?
Let me say this for my parting words.
By all means.
There are times that as an educator, you wonder, why am I willing to butt my head up against the wall like this day after day?
Okay.
Why am I willing to put up with hostile parents? Why am I willing to put up with boards that are politically divided, that are more concerned often about their personal agendas than loving on kids? And on those days, what we've learned is the day that most people announce that they are quitting is on a Monday after a tough Friday. And they go home and they talk it over and they say, I'm done. Well, here's what we know. Purpose gives you staying power. There are times that all you have is your purpose. And there are times that's all you need to stay in the game.
You know, somehow or another, I'm thinking that, did you learn that during being a minister or since?
I certainly learned that in being a pastor.
Okay.
That there are times that my sense of calling was the only thing that kept me going. And your teachers and you have had those days.
Absolutely. Sure. Absolutely.
Purpose is calling, brother.
Yeah.
And it'll keep us in the game.
Had one or two of them last week, in fact. No, I'm just kidding.
You bet.
I got you. That's great stuff. Thank you.
Bless you, brother.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for allowing us to be on your program. It's an honor.
Absolutely. If you guys will hold on with me for just a minute, we'll come back and close the show.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
As you can see, once again, we've had some amazing leaders who graced us with the opportunity to come and share some leadership perspective. We're going to see and do the very best that we can to get these gentlemen to come back and be a part of what we're trying to do here from time to time. These are leaders at the forefront of the profession. We're going to also share in our tweet and post out of the show information that will show you how you can get in contact with them and get a copy of this wonderful book and get in touch with them to do some work within your community, whether it is school district or just leadership in general. If you need some folks to lean upon to learn how to be better leaders, we'll share all of that contact information with you. As we continue with the Wright Experience, we're going to continue to bring some more authors, a kind of an author series theme we got going on right now. So we're looking forward to bringing that content to you over the next few weeks and months. I am honored to be almost at 3 years of doing this content, and we're continuing to grow and learn more about how to best serve our viewing community. Thank you for always agreeing to be a part of the work that we're doing. Dr. Peters, Dr. Johnson, gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. We didn't get to all that we could have, so I'm going to use that as an excuse, an opportunity to get you all back at a later date so that we can further talk about this. I will be getting all of your information, contact information. We'll get that loaded up so that folks will know how to reach out to you and how to get copies of the book, and also invite you to help us become better leaders. I count it an honor and a privilege to have both of you be a part of the Wright Experience. And
same to you, sir. Back at you.
Great being here. Great being here. Thank you.
To the Wright Experience, good evening.
Take care.